Be blessed by the divine. How can Kundalini Yoga help you to overcome fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real. And this is what I have read in a beautiful book that came to me some years ago. And I have been teaching this to a lot of people. And I have also been able to overcome fear and help many people to overcome fear in the last about 20 years or so of me teaching Kundalini Yoga to aspirants. Now, how do I approach fear? First and foremost is to understand what are we afraid of. Perhaps we are afraid of not managing ourselves on time, not completing tasks on time. Perhaps we are afraid of not having enough money. Perhaps we are afraid of getting caught for all our mistakes, and therefore the fear of punishment comes to us. Perhaps we are afraid of failure. Fear of failure is one of the biggest fears that human beings have today. Perhaps we are afraid of public speaking. Perhaps we are afraid of insects. Perhaps we are afraid of infection. Perhaps we are afraid of death. Maybe of all the things that human beings are afraid of, the fear of death is one of the least affected problems today in the world. You may be surprised by that. You can go on Google and figure it out that fear of death is actually quite way below in the list. The fear of public speaking is apparently a lot more amongst human beings in this planet. It's quite interesting why fear comes into us in the first place. Let me take a few examples. There was a man who was afraid of cockroaches. Now, he doesn't know that cockroach is not venomous. It cannot really give you rash. Its bite cannot be dangerous. It cannot really kill you. It is perhaps the cleanest insect in the insect kingdom. That's true. It is one of the cleanest insects for itself. And that is why it can go into the ditches, it can go into the dungeons, it can go into the nooks and corners, it can infest on anything and still not get affected by any of those things. It is one of those insects that will survive an holocaust. It can survive nuclear bomb. It can survive tsunami. It can survive earthquakes. It's a fantastic creature, all right. So if you ask a human being, that same human being that I gave you example, if I asked him, why are you afraid of cockroaches? He will certainly tell you that it is not so much as fear of cockroaches, that it is more of an aversion to that insect, especially when it starts flying. And this is a common problem amongst children, you might see. The reason why people are afraid of such insects is because they don't know anything about that insect. They just assume, they imagine things. If I ask this human being why is he afraid, he will tell you that I don't know. I have always been afraid. Now, why was he always afraid? Because his mother was afraid. Because his mother was afraid, and that fear went into this child's mind, and the child started getting fear as soon as it came across a cockroach, and it developed this fear over a period of time. Likewise, if you see a human being with fear of failure, a classic example would be like nobody wants to try anything new in this world. They definitely don't want to be an entrepreneur. They don't want to start a business. They really don't want to go out and experiment and explore and become an adventurer of sorts. The reason is they're afraid that they may fail and they will not have enough money on hand. The fear of failure is one of the biggest failures today that infects human beings. Now you ask them, as a child, were you afraid of getting up and walking? And they will tell you, no, I didn't even know what fear was in those days. And the fear of falling comes to us much later in our life. It was not something that we are born with. If we are not afraid of falling, which is one of the first things that we should be afraid of as a failure goes, because we don't know how to walk, and the first time we begin to walk, and if the child is afraid of walking and afraid of falling down and failing before it learns to walk, then none of us would have walked on this planet, my friend. We all would have only crawled, and we will be crawling all our lives till today. The fact that all of us are able, or rather I will say about 99.99999% of the people are today are able to stand up and walk, shows, proves that as a child we are not born with the fear of failure. Likewise, fear of heights, fear of flying, fear of closed spaces. If you inspect the root cause of why this fear has come into our personality, in our psyche, there will be a childhood reason, or there may be a shocking incident or an occurrence that may have happened in our life. And therefore, we have developed this fear over a period of time. Perhaps it is genetic also. Perhaps it is instigated by our friends or our relatives or others. Perhaps it is an environmental instigation. I know you might have seen many YouTube videos or Facebook videos. Chinese typically love to make these kind of videos where there is a fellow who will be sitting there, and suddenly he will get up and he'll start running, and he start calling out fire, 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 and start running, and everybody will run along with him. Some half kilometer later he will stop and he will coolly start walking, and everybody will stop him and ask, why did you run and why did you walk now? I don't know, I just felt like calling out fire and I ran, and you all ran with me, so why did you run? So nobody knows the answer, but then everybody starts laughing. Now, that's exactly how we are. We get instigated by other people's fears, or environment instigates this fear in us, and we fall prey to this unnecessary emotion in us. And you will find that you have absolutely no reason to be afraid of. Fair enough, there may be some valid reasons sometimes. And let me ask you, if indeed you have a valid reason, how is fear going to help you? Let me say that you are afraid of not having enough money, fear of poverty. How is fear going to help you in overcoming the poverty? Think about it. You may have done a mistake, and you may be afraid of getting caught with your wife. Now, how is fear going to help you in that? You must admit that you have made a mistake, and that you will not make the mistake again. Or better still, work towards preventing this mistake forever in your life, so that you need not be afraid of any repercussions and side effects and problems and whatnot in your life. You can just go and live peacefully if you just decide that fear as an emotion is unnecessary for us in our life. What we must therefore choose is 4 simple steps to overcome fear. Step 1, plan and act. There are fears that we need to plan and act upon. There are fears like fear of not having money, fear of not finishing things on time, fear of not studying well for the examination, fear of not having a planned life altogether, fear of not having the right life partner in your life, fear of not succeeding in a particular project in your life. All of these require a proper planning and your alignment of your actions towards that planning. And while you are acting on those plans, you must be able to go back and replan it, make sure that the plan is accurate towards achieving your goal. Number 2, there are fears that you need to endure. There's nothing you can do about it. For instance, let us say that one of your loved one has got cancer. Now the doctors tell you that now this lady has got breast cancer or something like that, and she might die. What are you going to do about it? You're going to take them to the doctor. The doctor has looked at her, and the doctor is saying perhaps she will not survive. That's fine. There's nothing we can do about it. Her karma is getting over and she's going to someday die. So therefore, from today, instead of being afraid of her death or her suffering in her life, We will boldly try and face the consequences of this disease and help this lady perhaps lessen the effects of this trauma by smiling, laughing, and making her laugh and being jolly and working towards fulfilling all her desires in life. How is that for a plan? Therefore, we must endure these kind of fears in our life. Third set of fears that we must address are fears that we must postpone. Fair enough. Supposing I am caught alone in the night in my house, how am I going to survive the darkness? How am I going to survive the loneliness? This may be a fear that may be there deep within me because I'm afraid of darkness, I'm afraid of being lonely. Now, if it happens, when it happens, we need to worry about it. It may never happen. Even if it happens, it is going to happen not out of accident, but out of careful planning of the remaining family members of my family. Therefore, I can always plan to make sure that I am not alone. If at all I am afraid of doing that, being in darkness. So therefore, there again, I must postpone this worry to a point where perhaps I can work towards solving this problem. The fourth type of worries are things that I must ignore. And there is simply no truth about many fears. In fact, a lot of the fears will fall under this ignore category. Fear of darkness. Why are you afraid of darkness? Darkness is the fundamental characteristic or a character of the primordial force. That is why in one of the Hindu gods are named after darkness. Are you wondering which god this is? Krishna. The name Krishna means darkness. So he is named after darkness. And we worship such a god. Was there a god called Krishna? We don't know. But it is a character of the primordial force. And therefore, we need not be worried about darkness. People are worried about loneliness. I know this is one of the biggest diseases, so to say, in this world. Now, why are you afraid of loneliness? When you realize that you are a fraction of the totality, you are enveloped by the Almighty force. Within us is the Almighty force. Around us is the Almighty force. You look forward to being lonely. Because when you are lonely, you are one with God. Therefore, there is a need for us to be afraid of being lonely. We need not be afraid of anything in our life that comes from within us or comes from outside of us. And this is possible to achieve by first learning to meditate at your Sahasrara Duriya Chakra, going to the alpha level of frequency. And that initiation is possible through the simplified Kundalini Yoga gifted to us by our Guru Sri Vedatri Maharishi. You can visit simplifiedkundaliniyoga.com and look for a center nearby. Get initiated to the third eye chakra, Ajna chakra, and later into the Sahasrara Duriya crown chakra. By meditating at the Duriya chakra, your brain will begin to function at the alpha level of frequency between 8 and 13 cycles per second. Once it is activated and it is working at alpha level, you can then take one of the 4 resolutions that I have talked about. Plan and act, endure, ignore, postpone. Against each of the worries that you may have in the depth of your mind. And then superimpose by interlinking and visualizing. Interlinking means we must say that planning and acting is actually a great way of overcoming the fear of not having enough money. Therefore, I'm going to just enjoy planning. I'm just going to enjoy acting on my plan because that's going to take me out of poverty. Fantastic, isn't it? So by just working on the plan and working on implementing that plan, I am channelizing my brain to visualize a positive mental wave in place of the negative mental wave, fear. I hope you understand how this is done as a Kundalini Yoga process. You meditate at the alpha level, and then you visualize and superimpose. You take the positive thought, give strength to the positive thought, and superimpose that thought in place of the negative fear that you have. By doing this constantly at the silence alpha level of frequency, the so-called the sleep with dream state, but in Kundalini Yoga, the same state is achieved without slipping into sleep. You remain aware, you remain conscious, you remain completely focused on your own thought pattern, and therefore you are able to reprogram it at the genetic center level. Fear is gone. Once fear is gone, what is there for you to be worried about in life? When fear is gone, worry goes away in life. When worry is gone, there is no cortisol production, there is no stress induced cortisol production in the brain, and your amygdala will start cooperating with you, and endorphins and melatonin, serotonin, and favorable dopamine, all these things will secrete in your brain, and you will be on a fantastic spiritual steroid, so to say, and feel absolutely blissful, happy, and prosperous, and have a great time ahead. I will see you in the next video. Be blessed by the divine.